Welcome back. We've just gone through a fascinating, maybe even alarming set of sources about New York State.
Definitely provocative.
Yeah.
They lay out this argument about a total economic flip.
Right. This idea that the relationship between upstate and downstate New York has gone from, well, maybe harmony to something they actually call a colonial relationship.
Yeah, that's the term they use.
Yeah.
The core idea is that upstate's productive base, its vitality, has been sort of siphoned off to prop up downstate, especially the financial sector.
Okay, so for this deep dive, our mission is to really unpack the two big drivers the sources point to for this inversion.
Exactly. First, there's the impact of financialization, how finance changed everything.
And second?
And second, the burden of bureaucratic policy, particularly coming out of Albany.
Got it. Let's start with that first one, financialization destroying production. The sources paint a picture of old New York, Buffalo Steel, Rochester Optics.
Yeah, it's Schenectady Power, titans of industry.
But then Wall Street changes. It becomes less about funding those giants and more about, well, speculation.
Precisely. The sources contrast, say, 1900, when banks were doing long-term financing for those actual factories, versus 1980.
What happened by 1980?
Well, by then, the focus shifted to things like leveraged buyouts, asset stripping, basically complex ways to extract value quickly, often leaving companies hollowed out.
So it's like the financial world stopped caring about making things.
That's the argument. Upstate built tangible goods. Downstate built abstractions, derivatives, securitized mortgages, things like that.
And the result wasn't creative destruction, where something better replaces the old.
No, they call it sterile consolidation. Shuttered plants, gutted pensions. Places like Utica left with empty buildings because the real economy just didn't fit the financial model anymore.
Okay, so finance extracts the capital. What about the second mechanism, policy? How did Albany, supposedly driven by downstate interests, drain vitality through bureaucracy?
Well, the sources describe a kind of liberal technocracy in Albany creating these broad mandates. Think environmental rules, labor regulations, welfare systems.
Things that might make sense for New York City.
Often designed with NYC's density and scale in mind, yeah. But then they were imposed uniformly. On small upstate towns, Elmira, Auburn, places with dwindling populations and tax bases, they just couldn't keep up.
That sounds unsustainable. Do the sources give a specific example of this imbalance?
They do. They make this sharp comparison, calling it parasitic policy.
Parasitic. Wow.
Yeah. For instance, they point out how state tax credits might help subsidize gentrification down to Brooklyn. Meanwhile, property owners up in Syracuse, they're facing what the sources call confiscatory rates.
Meaning taxes are so high, they basically negate the property's value.
Just to keep basic things like schools funded, so one area's boom is financed by another area's struggle to just survive.
That really crystallizes the idea of two separate states, almost. And the data seems to back up the decline upstate, right? Depopulation since the 70s.
Oh, yeah. Significant depopulation in most upstate counties. Rochester, Buffalo losing maybe half their peak population. And what's left of the economy often relies heavily on state-funded institutions, universities, prisons, healthcare, bureaucracy itself.
So connecting this back to the bigger picture, the sources get pretty critical of NYC's role. They call it a gated citadel of global capital.
They do. And they also critique the rhetoric coming out of it. They talk about fashionable socialism or a performance art of guilt. The idea that elites whose wealth comes from this financial system engage in a kind of public denunciation of it, but without fundamentally changing anything. It's more about status signaling.
The sources also draw an analogy, I remember, to late-imperial London.
Yeah, that's a striking comparison. Yeah. London stopped being the world's workshop and became its counting house. And as its material production declined, it compensated with moralism and decadence.
And there was also a mention of Peter Turchin's theory.
Right. Elite overproduction. The idea that you get this surplus of highly educated, ambitious people, but not enough top positions for them in politics or finance.
So they become disgruntled.
They become a kind of rebellion of courtiers, as the sources put it. They moralize against the system, the oligarchy, but they're still economically tied to it. New York, in this view, showcases this perfectly.
It's a really potent diagnosis. Downstate consumes and moralizes, while upstate declines and pays the bills.
That's the core argument. And the sources are firm. They believe this decline is political, not inevitable. They suggest things like more upstate sovereignty, shifting state investment priorities, think rail freight over subways, and actively trying to reindustrialize.
So the final thought for you, the listener, comes directly from this material. If New York is, as described, an empire in decay, are these proposed political and fiscal shifts truly enough? Can that productive life actually be rebuilt, or has the logic of financial extraction reshaped the state too deeply? Something to chew on.